All right, y'all. So our 4.3, it's going to teach us about what we call the greatest common factor. All right, so the greatest common factor and I'll abbreviate that to GCF. So the greatest common factor is the largest factor that is common among two or more terms. And y'all remember, when I'm talking about terms of a polynomial, I'm talking about each term being separated by the adding and subtracting on that polynomial, okay? So remember, it's the largest common factor, so variables are easier than numbers, okay? Because with variables, the greatest common factor, GCF, is equal to the variable with the smallest exponent. Okay, so if all three of my terms or both of my terms have a variable in them, I'm going to choose the variable that has the smallest exponent to be my GCF between the variables. If I got a number, I got to figure out what the largest factor that those numbers would have in common. So this will only say factor. Now, no matter what type of polynomial you're going to be factoring in the future, the first thing you want to look for is the greatest common factor, okay? You always want to try to factor that out before we do any of the factoring that I'm going to show you in the next couple sections. So one, I got a 8t squared plus a 2t. So the first thing we want to do is figure out what is the greatest common factor between these two terms. So first I want to compare my numbers. I got an 8 and a 2. So if you want to, come over here and write out all the possible factors of each of these numbers. So an 8, that could be a 1 and an 8, or a 2 and a 4. On the 2, the only factors of a 2 are a 1 and a 2. So I'm looking for the largest number that would be common to both of those. And y'all notice the largest number they got in common is a 2. So my GCF will be a 2 for the numbers. Now I'm going to compare these variables. I got a t squared. And remember, this t, since it does not have a variable, is like it's got a 1 by it. So remember, on the variables, I'm going to pick the one that has the smallest exponent. Well, y'all, that's going to be the t to the first. So my greatest common factor will be a 2t. So now what we do, we're going to write the 2t down, which is our greatest common factor. Inside these parentheses, we're going to put the quotient of dividing both of these terms by that GCF. So I would take the 8t squared and divide it by my 2t. Well, y'all, 8 divided by 2 gives me a 4. So the number will be a 4. T squared divided by t. Remember, treat that like a 1. And when you're dividing variables, you're just going to subtract the exponents. So that's going to give me a t. 2 minus 1 would be 1. So that tells me that when I divide 8t squared by the 2t, I get a 4t here. Plus, y'all think about this. I got a 2t divided by 2t. Well, y'all, anything divided by itself equals a 1. So I'm going to put my 1 and close my parentheses. Now to check it, nothing else is common between these two terms inside the parentheses other than a 1. So y'all, that would be our final answer. Okay, so let's see what we got here. We got a b to the 5th plus a 7b to the 4th. So first thing we're going to do is find that greatest common factor. Now, there's not a number in front of the b, so it would be like a 1 sitting up there. So notice, technically they both don't have numbers because there's no common factor between a 1 and a 7. So we will not have a number in the greatest common factor. So y'all, I'm looking at the B5 and the B4. Y'all, between these two terms, the B5 and the B4, what would y'all put for a greatest common factor? All right, so I see it lighting up now. I was waiting on my chat. So, okay, so just want to think about this. There's only a 1 here. And if you write the factors of each of these numbers, the 1 would only be 1 times 1, and the 7 would be 1 times 7. So technically, the only number they got in common would be the 1, okay? So what we got to look at on this one basically are these variables. So remember, if I got a B5 and a B4, we said right here with variables, the greatest common factor is equal to the variable with the smallest exponent. So 5 and 4, the smallest exponent would be the B4. Now, B5 would be my larger exponent, but remember, this B has 5 B's in it. This one's only got 4 B's in it, so the most they have in common would be the 4 B's, okay? All right, you got a B5. You're going to divide that by the B4 to see what's going in these parentheses. All right, y'all, guess what? 5 minus 4 is 1. So that leaves me a B to the first, which is just a B. Plus, I got the 7B4 divided by the B4. Well, the B4s cancel, and all that's left is the 7. Notice, when you factor out a variable for your greatest common factor, both of these cannot have a B in it no more. Because if they both had a B in it, then you wouldn't have got the GCF out of that, okay? So whatever's in parentheses cannot have anything else in common. All right, y'all, watch this one. 5r squared minus 5r minus 15. So let me ask y'all this. You got a 5, you got a 5, and you got a 15. What would be the largest factor that they all have in common? What number is a factor of all three of these? All right, Zon, I'm going to go with that. You are hitting that good. So it is definitely a 5. Now notice, I can't do the variables because this term has an R, this has an R, but y'all, the 15 does not have an R after it. So we cannot factor out the variable as our GCF. So y'all, the only thing we can factor out is the 5. So divide each three of these by 5. 5 divided by 5 leaves me 1R squared minus 5 divided by 5 leaves me 1R minus 15 divided by 5 leaves me a 3. So y'all, this is undoing that distributive property we learned the other day. I could go 5 times R squared, get back to my 5R squared. 5 times negative R gets me back to the negative 5R. 5 times negative 3 would get me back to the negative 15. All right, try this one. Now this one is saying factor out a factor with a negative coefficient. And they're giving me a negative 5y minus 15. So y'all check this out. When they say factor out a factor with a negative coefficient, they mean that the GCF has to be negative, okay? So compare the numbers. 5 and 15 again. What is that greatest common factor? So definitely going to be a 5 again. So our GCF will actually be a negative 5. So we write our negative 5. So here we go. Negative 5 divided by negative 5 is 1. So that's going to give me a 1y in here minus. Now y'all be careful on this one. Watch what's going to happen. A negative 15 divided by negative 5 is actually going to make this a positive 3 in enclosure parentheses. So when you factor out a negative, it changes the signs of both of the terms when you put them in your parentheses. Y'all, the GCF stuff, it's not too bad once you get the hang of it. All righty, so watch this next one. So here we go. So what am I on, number 5, I think? This one says, factor the following expression. All right, I got a x times c minus 4 plus a x. Nope, this one's a, my bad. X times c minus 4 plus r times c minus 4. All right, we got two terms. We got the first term is x times c minus 4. The second term is r times c minus 4. So what do both of these terms have in common? All right, so they got a 4, but they got a little bit more than that 4. Yeah, they got the C also. So y'all, the GCF on this would actually be the parentheses C minus 4. Because both of these had a C minus 4 in them, okay? So what we're going to do, we're going to write our GCF, which is a C minus 4. And then we're going to set up our next parentheses. So let me ask you this. If you factor out a C minus 4 from both of these terms, what's going to be left for me to put in the second parentheses? So the X and the R, so y'all, we would just put X plus R. So since the R is positive, bring it down as a addition when you rewrite it. So if you notice, the stuff in the parentheses makes up one of your factors. The stuff that was on the outside of your parentheses makes up the other factor. So y'all, let me do another one of these like this. What if I had how about a V times X plus 2 plus I had a W times X plus 2. So y'all, give me my greatest common factor. Good job. It is definitely the X plus 2. Now, really, I don't need my parentheses here, but when we bring it down, we got to put that thing in parentheses. So this is undoing that stuff we were sort of foiling on Tuesday, okay? So y'all, if I factor out that X plus 2 from both of these terms, what are y'all putting in the second parenthesis? V plus W. Good job. All right, now, so y'all watch this one. We're going to start at a step before this. So they want us to factor by grouping. And y'all, I'm going to tell you the truth. You're learning this factor by grouping on this one because there's 2 whole problems in college algebra where you're going to do this, okay? So let me see what I got. I got an X to the 3rd plus 7x squared minus 7x minus 49. And y'all, this is actually the last problem in the 4-3 section. So factor by grouping. I'm going to write my steps over here. So make this into 2 groups. So to make it into 2 groups, I'm going to group the first 2 together, and I'm going to group the second 2 together. Always group the first 2 and then the last 2. From each of these groups, we're going to factor out the GCF from each group. Now, the second GCF, so that's when I factor out of this second group, the second GCF has the same sign as the third term. So the third term would be the negative 7x, which is the first of the last 2 terms, okay? So the second GCF, when I factor it out, will always have the same sign as this third term. So y'all, what we got to do here is figure out what the greatest common factor, first off, between the first two terms. Y'all, we got an x to the third here plus 7x squared. What would be my GCF between an x to the third and a 7x squared? And y'all, I will say this. It will not be a number because there's no number up here other than a 1. And 1 don't help us do anything. So concentrate on them two variables. If I had an x to the third and an x to the second, which one are we picking? I just want to help y'all out on this one then. Remember, we always go with the smallest exponent, which is that 2. So yeah, I think internet's running slow or something because you're definitely right. It's going to be the x squared. Now over here, remember, second GCF has the same sign as the third term. So that second GCF will be negative. So what is the largest factor between a 7 and a 49? Because see, this one don't have an x to worry about. So between 7 and 49, what is the largest factor that they have in common? And y'all remember, factors are the numbers that multiply to get these two numbers. So your factors of 7 are going to be 1 and 7. Your factors of 49 are going to be 1 and 49, and then 7 times 7. So the largest number they both had would be a 7. So that's going to make that a negative 7. There you go. All right, so now we know what the GCFs are, so we're going to factor them out now. So the first two terms divide by their GCF. So if you had an x to the third divided by your x to the square, 3 minus 2 leaves you 1x plus the 7x squared divided by the x squared. Those x squareds basically cancel, leaving me a 7. Now, we write the second GCF. Since it's negative 7, that's going to be minus a 7, and then we do the parentheses. So, y'all, the negative 7 divided by negative 7 makes a 1. So all that's left is a 1x. This negative 49 divided by that negative 7. Remember, 2 negatives when you divide, make that a positive. And then 49 divided by 7 is 7. So do y'all see what's happening here? At this point, these parentheses gotta be exactly the same. Just like up here on number 5. So when you factor by grouping, the parentheses gotta match up. So see, let's see if y'all remember. I got an x squared times x plus 7. I got a minus 7 times x plus 7. What is the GCF between those two? Oh, yes, yeah, it's perfect. X plus 7. All right, so since x plus 7 is our last GCF, we bring it out as an x plus 7. In the second parentheses, we put our x squared minus our 7. So remember, parentheses come out, make up one factor. Everything else comes down and makes up the other factor. So y'all, that was what we call factor by grouping. The trick is getting these GCFs up here. Okay. Once you got your GCFs, You factor each of these by dividing them by that GCF to get what goes in those parentheses, okay? All righty, y'all. The next thing I show you is 4.4. And this is what you really want to get good at eventually. Because we do a lot of this section in college algebra. So 4.4, we're going to factor trinomials. Of the form x squared plus bx plus c. So remember, trinomials will have 3 terms, okay? So I'm going to show y'all what I call my sign rules. So if I'm factoring, so the first rule, if all the signs are positive, if all the signs are positive, then your factors will both be positive. So both the factors will be positive. And to get the numbers, I find factors of C. So you're going to find factors of the last number that add to get B. So we're going to find factors of our C that add to get the B. So y'all, let's do a little example when they're both positive. I'm going to do an x squared plus 7x plus 12. So you're going to come down and make 2 sets of parentheses. In the front of each parenthesis, the only way to get an x squared is an x and an x. So officially, since this last number is positive, remember, when you multiply stuff, the only way to get a positive is for both of these signs to be the same. So when the last one's positive, both the signs will be the same as that middle number. So these will both be positive. Just like what we said here. So now, we're going to write the factors of 12. You got 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and 3 times 4. I want a pair of them numbers that add to get 7 because 7 is my B. That is my middle number. So y'all, we would pick 3 and 4. Now, it don't matter what order we put them in. So I'm just going to put my 3 and my 4. We are now factored. So if both signs are positive, both factors will be positive. And I'm finding factors of my last number that add to get my middle number. All right, y'all, if you got something like this, x squared minus bx plus c. That means both of these factors will be negative. Both factors will be negative. Because remember, the last one's positive, so you're multiplying 2 numbers to get a positive, which in this case, both of these would be negative like that middle number. So y'all watch an example of that. How about x squared minus, oh, let me see what I want here. 7x plus 10. So we're going to come down, make our parentheses. X squared again would be an x and an x. All right, so officially, if the last number is positive like this, both of these factors are going to have the same sign as that middle number. So they're both going to be negative. So now I need factors of 10 that still add to get a 7. So 10 could be 1 and 10, and then 2 and 5. So the numbers I need that add to get 7 in the middle are going to be 2 and 5. So I'm going to put in my 2 and my 5. So y'all check this. -2 plus -5 equals that -7. But if you multiply -2 times -5, you get a positive 10. So since that checks out, you would be good to go, okay? So look, the moral of the story, if this last number is positive, you're going to have like signs on the factors, and the sign will be the same as the middle number. So this one was negative, both factors were negative, okay? All right, the third case could be a x squared plus a bx minus c. If we have this, this will factor into a positive and a negative. Remember, if the last one's negative, the only way to get a negative at the end is if one of these was positive times a negative, okay? Now, here's the trick. Let me show you an example. Middle positive, the end negative. X squared plus 3x minus, oh, what I want here. How about a 10? All right, y'all, so watch this. I'm going to make my parentheses. X squared is still going to be an x and an x. Since this last sign is negative, one will be positive, one will be negative. Now, up here, I was looking for numbers that added to get the middle number. When this last one's negative, I want factors of 10 that subtract to get the middle. So that last sign tells me whether I'm adding or subtracting these factors to get that middle number. And y'all, the only ones that'll equal a 3 are going to be the 5 and the 2. Now, here's where we got some guessing. Do we put the 2 positive or the 5 positive? And then which one's going to be negative? So y'all, here's the trick on that. Anytime the last number is negative like that, the larger factor, and my larger factor is the 5, has the same sign as our B. Since my B is a positive 3, that means my larger factor has to be a positive. My other factor will be the negative. So y'all watch this. 5 minus 2 equals 3. 5 times -2 equals -10. And then I'll even write that note over here about, so down here, the factors subtract. On both of these, the factors add. So let's come down to number 4. The last case is if everybody's negative. X squared minus a bx minus c. Well, y'all guess what? That last number's negative again. So remember, anytime this last number's negative, I'm going to have unlike signs on my factors. So let's play with this. As an example, how about x squared minus, how about minus a x plus 20. So we once again know that trinomial will factor into two sets of parentheses. X squared, we'll put an X. Oops, y'all, my bad. Change that last sign to a negative. Remember, I wanted both of these to be negative. So we're really doing X squared minus X minus 20. Yeah, because I wanted it to match this one, okay? All righty. That last sign is negative, so we got a positive and a negative. So now we need to find factors of 20. That'll be 1 and 20, 2 and 10, and then 4 and 5. Now, y'all, I'm going to show you, we recommend a TI-84 for these college algebra classes. So if you got a TI-84, let me show you how I would find factors of this number 20. So let me go to my calculator just to show y'all. That way, if you're sort of weak at finding factors of a number, this is how I would do it. I'm going to go to y equals, and the number I want to find factors of is 20. So I'm going to do 20 divided by x. So this will divide 20 by all the numbers that could be factors of it. So watch this. To see the factors, you hit the blue second button and the graph button. So let me go up to where this started at 0. So notice, 0 is not a factor of 20. But if you go down here, you got 1 times 20. Down here, you got 2 times 10. And then down here, you got the 5 times 4. I'm only looking for factors that are not decimals, okay? So that's how you would do those on your calculator. Now remember, when the last one's negative, my factors gotta subtract. The factors gotta subtract. Now you don't even have a number in the middle. So guess what? Since you don't have a number in front of that X, you gotta treat it like a 1. So I need factors that'll subtract and give me the 1. That's gonna be my 5 and my 4. But y'all, I got to figure out which one's positive, which one's negative. So guess what? The larger factor of these two factors will have the same sign as B. This time your B is negative. So that means the larger factor 5 has to be negative. So you put in your 5. The 4 would be your positive. So 4 minus 5 equals that negative 1. 4 times negative 5 equals that negative 20. So y'all, I'm going to go through the examples like they got now. I just wanted to give y'all the 4 different patterns that you can have for your answers. Last one's positive. Both of them will be the same as the middle. Last one's negative. You're going to have unlike factors. The larger factor of the two will have the same sign as the middle number. Okay, middle number is positive, large factor is positive. Middle number is negative, large factor will be negative. So y'all knowing that, let's work some of their examples. And guess what? These are going to say factor the trinomial. Now notice, you still want to check and see if you got a greatest common factor before you start factoring these, okay? So how about I have an x squared plus 15x plus 56. We know right off the bat there's no greatest common factor because there's not a number in front of the x squared, and there's not an x with this last number. So there's not a greatest common factor. So we're going to factor it straight into our parentheses. X squared is an X and an X. Now let's put our signs here. This last number is positive, so both of these factors will be the same as the middle number. So they're both going to be positive. So y'all, now I need factors of 56 that add to get 15. So let's see, 56 is a fairly big number. So let me show you on the calculator again so that y'all get good at this. So what I would do, I'm going to clear that out. 56 is the number I'm looking at. So I'm going to do 56 divided by X. And then I'm going to hit the blue second button and the graph button to pull up the table. So notice we got 1 and 56. And I'm looking for something that add to get me a 15, okay? 2 and 28 don't. 4 and 14 don't. So let me keep going. Oh, y'all look at that. I got a 7 and an 8. And guess what? 7 and 8 are going to add to get me a 15. So we would go back to our paper. So remember, they gave me 1 and 56, 2 and 28. What else was there? 4 and 14. And then we had 7 and 8. So the ones we needed that added to get that 15 were 7 and 8. Now remember, order don't matter as long as they're both positive, okay? All right, y'all, number 2, b squared minus 10b plus 16. Once again, there's no greatest common factor. This one don't have a variable, and this one don't have a number. So we're going to put these right into our parentheses. A b squared, though, that's going to put a b in front of both parentheses. This last sign is positive. Since that's positive, both of these factors will be negative like the middle number. Now on the calculator, you would do, on your y equals, you would do 16 divided by x. But y'all, I'm going to write your factors of 16 would be 1 times 16, 2 times 8, and 4 times 4. I need the pair that add to get a 10. And y'all, this last sign, it tells me I got like signs, and it also tells me that my factors are going to add to get that b. So since I got a 10 in the middle, the 2 I need are going to be 2 and 8. Once again, it don't matter where I put them as long as they're both negative. Now check this. Negative 2 and negative 8 equal negative 10. Negative 2 times negative 8 equal positive 16. They got to add to get the middle, multiply to get the last. So y'all, I'm going to tell y'all the truth. The biggest thing for factoring is learning those signs, okay? And then being able to find these numbers. So let's turn it up a little bit. Let's do a 3y squared minus 12y plus 12. So remember, the first thing I got to do is factor out a GCF if I have one. So y'all, is there a factor common between a 3, a 12, and a 12? And y'all, I'll even give you a little clue in this section. In this section, remember, everything we've been factoring has x squareds and b squareds in front of it. So if there's a number in front of the x squared term here, that number in front of that will be your GCF. That means that all 3 of these will divide by that 3. So you're going to factor out that GCF first. So 3 divided by 3 leaves you a y squared minus 12 divided by 3 gives you a 4y plus this 12 divided by 3 leaves you a 4. Now, the y squared minus 4y plus 4, we're now going to factor that on down, okay? So write your 3 and then make you 2 sets of parentheses. The y squared is going to be a y and a y. So y'all, my next question for y'all. What 2 signs will I put in here? 2 pluses, 2 negatives, or a plus and a negative? So I'm seeing negatives. Good job. They're both going to be negative because the last one's positive. Both factors got to have the same sign as that middle negative, okay? All right, y'all. So now we got to find factors of that last number, 4. That'll be 1 and 4, 2 and 2. The ones I need that give me 4 are going to be 2 and 2. All right, y'all. So let me show you this. MATLAB should take that answer like that, or it'll do it like this. 3 times y minus 2 squared. Remember the other day when we did the y minus 2 squared and we had to FOIL it? We wrote it twice and then we FOILed it. So this is sort of going back to getting you something like that. So y'all factoring, I love it because once I got used to it, I'm not going to lie, it's tricky at the first to learning how to get your signs and stuff. But once you get that figured out and start finding ways to get all the different factors, you'll probably like this stuff. So watch this. C squared plus a 4c minus 45. So y'all notice, I don't have a greatest common factor because this one does not have a c in it. So there's no greatest common factor. We're going to go straight into our parentheses. C squared will put a c in the front of both parentheses. But y'all check this out. This time that 45 is negative. Anytime that last number is negative, you automatically got a positive and a negative factor. So then I'm going to find factors of 45. But remember, the last one's negative again. So that minus is telling me I want factors of 45 that subtract to get a 4. Okay? Now, I do know of these 2 factors. The larger factor I come up with will be positive like that middle number. The larger factor always has the same sign as the middle. So y'all, you would start out with 1 and 45, 3 and 15, and 5 and 9. The 2 factors that'll give me a 4 are going to be the 9 and the 5. 9's larger, so it'll be positive. And then the 5 is the smaller factor, it'll be the negative. So y'all, that's really the trick. Keep up with these signs, okay? All right, so I'm going to give y'all a second to write that, and then we'll flip our page. All right, y'all, so let's see what we got next. So I think this is what my number 5. All righty, y'all. 14b plus a b squared plus 48. So y'all, I got to do one thing before I start factoring this one. I got to put them in the right order. Remember, the highest exponent has to go first, then the next exponent, then that number. So I'm going to rearrange this one first off. So we want that b squared being first, then the positive 14b, then the positive 48. All right, we're looking at that. There's no GCS because there is not a b here. So no GCF. I'm going to go straight into my parentheses. All righty, so a b squared is a b and a b. The last number, my c, is positive. So both factors have the same sign as the middle. So now I need factors of 48 that will add to get a 14. So y'all, let's see what we got. 48 is 1 and 48, 2 and 24, 3 and 16, 4 and 12. Ooh, what's next? 6 and 8. All right, so the pair we need that add to get me a 14 are going to be the 6 and 8. So we put a 6 in and an 8. So y'all remember, put these in order before you do any type of factoring to it, okay? All right, r squared minus 9r plus 14. All right, so I'm in the right order. No GCF because there's not an R here. So we're going to go straight into our parentheses. R squared is an R and an R. This last sign is positive again. So both of these factors will be negative like the middle number. So y'all, I need factors of 14 that'll equal 9. And there's only 2 guesses on that, right? So give me 2 numbers that multiply to get a 14, but they add to give me that 9. Seven and 2, good job. So throw my 7 and 2 in and be done. All right, y'all. V squared plus 10v plus 24. All right, so notice once again, no GCF. So we're going to go straight to the parentheses. V squared is a V and a V. Last sign's positive again. So both of these will be positive like the middle number. So can y'all find me factors of 24 that'll give me that 10? All right, let's see. We got what? All right, good job. I'm going to use 6 and 4. Good job. Now, this one was sort of tricky because if you do your numbers, 2 of them will give you a 10. If you add these ones, you get 10. If you do 12 minus 2, you get 10. Some people get them mixed up on this, but remember, ours has the add to get to 10. So good job, Jacinta. All righty, y'all. R squared minus R plus 43. So we have no GCF, so we're going to go straight to R parentheses. R squared would be an R and an R. Last sign is positive again, so both of these will be negative like the middle. So all I need now are factors of 43 that'll add. Remember, there's not a number here, so treat it like a 1. We all check this out. There's not going to be any factors of any number that are going to add to get you a 1, is there? So 1 and 43, I think that's a prime number, actually. So let's go to our calculator and see. So I would go to my y equals, and I'm going to clear that out, and I'm going to do 43 divided by x. Now remember, my factor's got to add to get that 1 since that last number was positive. So when I go to second table, so see, there's 1 and 43, and y'all, you could go all the way down to 43 on this. You're not going to get nothing but decimals all the way through. And then I would finish at 43 since that was my number. So 43 and 1 are the only factors of this number. So that means it's a prime number. But since none of these factors will add to get me a 1, this does not factorable. So we would say this is not factorable. Okay. They'll have that option B on here. If it does not factor, we call it, basically we say it is prime and it's not factorable. Okay. All right, y'all, moving on. So let me see. This one's number 9. I will say y'all are learning a lot of factoring in a quick pace in these summer classes. It usually takes us a week or two in the 16-week classes, okay? All right, y'all, watch this one. C squared plus 8CY plus a 15y squared. So now they throw the variable at the end of this, but notice there's no greatest common factor because this one doesn't have a c and this one don't have a y. So we're going to go straight to factoring in parentheses. So y'all, here's the difference on this one. The c squared is going to put a c in the front of both of these. But guess what? Since we got a y squared at the end of this, that means at the end of both of these parentheses, we're going to have a y. Now let's put our signs in. This is positive, so both of these factors will be the same as the middle. They're going to be both positive. And y'all, I need factors of 15 that add to get me an 8. So you got 1 and 15, 3 and 5. The numbers we need are 3 and 5. So we'll throw in our 3 and our 5. So if you was to FOIL this out, c times c is c squared. C times 5y gives you 5cy. And then here you got 3y times c. That'll give you 3cy. The 5 and the 3 add to get to 8cy. And then this 3y times 5y would multiply to get that 15y squared. All right, y'all. So the last one in this section has a 5y squared minus a 15y minus 140. All righty. Since I got that 5 in the front, I'm going to check and see if it'll divide out of all three of these. And 5 will go into the 15 and the 140. So this one, I'm factoring out a greatest common factor of a 5. All righty, y'all. So here we go. 5 divided by 5 gives me 1y squared into parentheses minus 15 divided by 5 gives me a 3y minus 140 divided by 5 gives me a 28. So now we got to factor what's inside our parentheses. So we bring that 5 down. We set up both our parentheses. Y squared is a y and a y. Now we all watch out. This last number is negative. Since it's negative, one will be positive, one will be negative. And remember, since it's minus here, I want factors of 28 that subtract to get 3. So y'all, let's break down that 28. It can be a 1 in 28. It can be a 2 in 14. Or it could be what, a 4 times 7. So the pair that gives me a 3 would be the 4 and the 7. So the larger factor is a 7. It's going to be negative like the middle number. So make the 7 negative and the 4 positive. So what you're going to put in MathLab is that whole thing, okay? Your GCF and then your 2 factors. So that is the first part about factoring trinomials. But notice, on all of these, if it had a number in the front, in this section, I was able to factor it out. And then my trinomials were always an x squared, a y squared, a c squared, or so on, okay? So y'all guess what? We're now going to do 4.5. So 4.5. So this is the last thing I promise, the last thing you got to learn about factoring today, okay? So 4.5, factoring trinomials. Of the form ax squared plus bx plus c. This time we're going to have a number in the front that we cannot factor out as a GCF, okay? And if it does have a GCF, there will still be a number in front, okay? So the first thing we do, the first thing I'll do is I multiply the A times the C. Once I multiply the A times the C, I'm going to have a product or some number. That is now the number that I'm going to use to find my factors that give me the middle number. So find factors of the A times C that add or subtract. I'm still following the sign rules, okay? So if the last one's positive, I want them to add. If the last one's negative, they're going to subtract. I'm going to find factors of that A times C that add or subtract to get B, which is my middle number. All right, so I'll have my X plus something, X plus something. I'll have my two numbers. So the last step you got to do, divide both factors by the A. So we sort of borrow the A by multiplying by the C to get that product. Once I get them two factors and I put them in my parentheses, I got to divide both factors by A and simplify if needed. Okay, here's the thing now. I'm going to have at least one of my two numbers. It's not going to reduce all the way. It'll still be a fraction. So if I'm left with a fraction, so if a fraction is left, move the denominator. Remember, the denominator is the bottom of that fraction. Move that denominator in front of the X. Inside the parentheses. So y'all, they're basically going to be the same. You just got an extra step or two because of these numbers in the front, okay? I will follow the same sign rules. Last one's positive, they'll both be the same as the middle. Last one's negative, they'll have unlike signs. And y'all, it looks like we only got about 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like about five problems in this section, okay? So for number 1, and these will say factor, I got a 3c squared plus 10c plus 8. So notice, I cannot factor out a 3 because 3 is not a factor of 10, and that 3 is not a factor of that 8. So this one has no GCF. So y'all, since I don't have a GCF, I got to multiply the first number times the last number. So 3 times 8 gives us 24. Now, I'm going to start out my parentheses like I did a while ago. I got a c squared, so that's going to be a c and a c. The last sign's positive, so both factors will be the same as the middle number. So both of these will be positive. So now what we got to do, we got to find factors of 24 that'll add to get a 10. So let's try 24 again. 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. The two numbers I need that give me a 10 are going to be the 4 and 6. So I'm going to write my 4 and my 6. But remember, my next step, it says divide both of these factors by A. A was the very first number. So for me, A would be 3. So you got to divide both of these by 3. So y'all, we're almost done. First question, 4 divided by 3. Well, we can't divide 4 divided by 3, and it's not going to simplify. So remember, if a fraction is left, move the denominator in front of the X inside the parentheses. So that means we're going to move this 3 in front of that C. So that factor gives me a 3C plus 24. Second fraction, can we divide the 6 by 3? Well, y'all, that one will divide. 6 divided by 3 will make that a 2. So that's going to give me a C plus 2 final answer. So y'all, the moral of the story, if this first number does not factor out, you got to borrow it and multiply by the 8. That's going to give you a 24 sum product here. You then got to find factors of that product that give you your middle number. So I came up with 4 and 6. But since I borrowed that 3 to get that product, I now have to divide both my factors by that 3. If the fraction does not simplify, you move the denominator in front of the variable and write that. If it does simplify, divide it and put that answer. But the moral of the story, y'all, is if you notice, if you learn them sign rules, factor's not too bad on you, okay? All right, let me see what we got next. 3x squared minus a 10x plus 8. So look what MATLAB did to me. It gave me the same exact numbers, except it made my middle number negative this time. So we know we can't factor out the 3, so we're going to multiply the 3 times 8. That equals 24. So now I'm going to set up my parentheses with an x and an x. Last sign is positive, so both of these will be negative like the middle number. All right, y'all, so guess what? I got my factors of 24 here. So I need a set of these factors that'll add to get 10. Well, that's going to be the 4 and 6 again. Now that I got my 2 factors, I got to divide both of them by that 3 I borrowed a while ago. So divide both of them by 3. And y'all will know what's going to happen here. This one don't reduce. So I'll move my 3 in front of the x. I'm going to get a 3x minus 4. The second one will divide, so that one's going to give me an x minus 2. So MATLAB, I don't know, y'all probably won't get the same exact numbers I did. But notice I'm following those sign rules. Last one's positive. Both factors are the same as the middle, okay? All right, y'all, let's continue on. All right, let me move my camera back up. So y'all, this one, they got a 25c plus a 35c squared minus 60. So remember, the first thing I got to check is for the order of this. So I'm going to first rearrange. Put that c squared up first. So 35c squared. Then your c, which will be a positive 25c. And then your number minus 60. Oh, y'all, this one definitely has a GCF. What is one number that I can divide all 3 of those numbers by? So y'all tell me my GCF. Definitely a 5. So y'all, we're going to factor out that 5 by dividing all 3 of these by the 5. So 35 divided by 5 gives you 7c squared plus 25 divided by 5 gives us the 5c minus 60 divided by 5 gives me a 12. So guess what? We now got to play with this stuff inside these parentheses. So since the 7 didn't factor out, we're going to multiply 7 times 12. So y'all, 7 times 12 is 84. So in a second, that's what I'm going to be playing with, is that 84. So let's get it ready. We got to bring down the 5, and then we're going to set up our parentheses. They're both going to have a C in front at the moment. But y'all check this out. That last number right there is negative. Since the last number is negative, I'm going to have a positive factor and a negative factor. Remember, the larger of these two factors will be positive, like that middle number, and then the smaller factor will be negative. So let's play with 84. That's a minus, so I want factors of 84 that are going to subtract and give me 5. So 1 and 84, 2 and what, 42, 3 and what, 26, nope, 3 and 28. What's next? 4 will go in there times 21. Ooh, let's see what's next. 7 will go times 12. And y'all, I think I'm about done. But remember, on the calculator, you could do y equals 84 divided by x, and it'll pull all the pairs up. But I need a 5, and guess what? 12 and 7 will give me that 5. Did you notice? It's actually the two numbers I multiplied to get to 84 that were the ones I needed with the 5. So the 12's larger, it's positive like the 5. And the 7 will be my negative. Now, I got to divide both of these by the 7. Remember, we're ignoring that GCF for now. It's only following us down. We're factoring what was inside the parentheses. So we borrowed the 7, we divide the 7 back out. So y'all, I'm going to bring down my 5 and start my parentheses. Well, I can't reduce the 12 divided by 7. So that means the 7 is going to go in front of the C. So I'm going to get a 7C plus my 12. But notice on my second fraction, 7 does divide by 7, making that a 1. So that'll be a C minus 1 in my final answer. So remember, on this one, get the order right. Factor out a GCF. You always want to factor out a GCF, y'all, because you don't want to multiply a 35 times a 60. Lord, who knows how big that number is. And try to find factors that'll give you 25, okay? So if your numbers are huge, pray that you got a GCF. And notice the GCF follows you all the way down to your final answer. All right, y'all. 4t squared minus a 10 minus, oh, let me see what that is, 18r. So once again, it's out of order at this end. The 4t squared is right, but this end's out of order. So I'm going to rearrange it. So remember, we're going to put our 4t squared first. minus the 18R minus the 10. So y'all, my first question, do I have a GCF on this? And if I have a GCF, what would y'all be pulling out? Ooh, that internet is slow on my end. So good job. It is definitely a 2. So we're going to bring down our 2, divide everybody by 2, and put that into parentheses. 4 divided by 2 gives me a 2t squared minus 18 divided by 2 gives me a 9. Oh, y'all, my bad. My eyes are bad. These are all t's. So make that middle one a t. All right, so then minus the 9t minus 10 divided by 2 is a 5. All righty, so 4 divided by 2, 2, 18 divided by 2, 9, 10 divided by 2, 5. So now we get to factor this inside. 2 times 5 is 10. Bring down your 2 and set up your parentheses. We're going to put a t in front of both of these at the moment. That 5 is negative. Since that's negative, we got unlike signs. But y'all, what we do know on this one, whatever my larger factor is, it's going to be negative like the middle number. So the larger factor has to be negative, okay? Unlike signs, middle number negative, larger number. All right, y'all, so I need factors of 10, 1 and 10, 2 and 5. But remember, since that's a minus, they got to subtract and get me a 9. So, y'all, that's going to be the 1 and 10. 10's larger, so it's going to be the negative. The 1 will be the positive. But remember, we got to come in and divide both them by the 2. That was our first number. All right, so now we're going to try to simplify and rewrite everything. Bring down that GCF of a 2. Well, the first fraction does not simplify, so I'm going to move that 2 in front of that t and make that a 2t plus 1. Second fraction will divide, so that's going to be what? A t minus 5. Final answer. All right, y'all, so guess what? I've only got one more to go with you. So let me flip my page. And move that camera back up. All right, so the last one. So this one only has 5. So although you're learning a lot, the homework's not too bad on you. So here we go. 2w squared plus 11w plus 5. So 2, 11, and 5, there's no GCF on those 3 numbers. So we're going to come in and do 2 times 5. That's going to give us a 10 again. So remember, it's no GCF, so I'm going to go straight to my parentheses, put a W and a W. The last one's positive, so both of these will be positive like the middle number. All right, y'all, so what I need are factors of this 10. That'll give me 11. So here's my 10. And the only 2 factors I can get are what? A 1 and a 10, and a 2 and a 5. So the pair I need that are going to add to get 11 are that 1 and 10. So bring down your 1 and your 10. And remember, we're going to divide both these by the a, which is a 2. Once again, I cannot simplify this one. So the 2 moves in front of the w. So you get a 2w plus 1. The second one will simplify. So a w plus 10 divided by 2 gives me a 5. So y'all, let me just show you one more thing on these. I got like 3 minutes left. What if I had something like this? Now y'all won't have one like this. What if I had a 3x squared plus 2x plus 7? So watch this. There's no GCF between a 3, 2, and a 7. So I'm going to multiply 3 times 7. That's going to give us a 21. So let's start our parentheses. X squared is an x and an x. Last one's positive. So both of these will be positive, like the middle number. So y'all, factors of 21 are 1 and 21, 3 and 7. Since that's a positive, I want factors of this 21 that add to get me a 2. Well, y'all, guess what? None of these factors will add to get me a 2. So do you remember what I said? If you can't find numbers that give you the middle number, what are we going to put? I can't tell if anyone's writing on that thing or not. So I don't know, my internet, I think, is being a little slow at my end. But if you can't find none of these numbers that'll give you the middle number, we say this does not factor. So they'll have a choice B. Choice A, if it factors, you'll put in the factors. Choice B, you click it if it does not factor. Now, I'm pretty sure since all 5 of mine factored, all 5 of y'all should factor. You shouldn't have to do this one in this section. But on the 4.4 that we did, it will have one that's probably going to be does not factor, okay? All righty, y'all. So let me stop the share on that. So y'all, to be caught up, you want to do these 3 sections before next Tuesday, okay? And I'll send you out the video. But remember, on these trinomials, learn those sign rules, okay? Once you learn the sign rules, factoring's a lot easier. So do y'all have any questions? All righty, so remember, factoring is a big thing for college algebra, and I just hate that this class makes us go through it so quick. But we'll get more practice by factoring in the upcoming chapters we go through, okay? So, y'all, I'm going to end our night. Let me stop our recording.